The pixel glowed cold against the dark room. My thumb froze mid-scroll. A photo. A smile. A dress. My dress. Not on me. On her. And the tag. The tag, bright white, a tiny, perfect arrow pointing directly at my name. At my name. Right there. For anyone to see. My breath hitched, a sharp, small sound lost in the quiet house. It wasn't just the dress. It was the audacity. The claiming. The public announcement of possession. My dress on her, with my name attached like a brand. The silence in the room became a physical weight, pressing down, crushing the air from my lungs. My heart began a frantic, trapped bird's beat against my ribs. This wasn't a mistake. This was a statement. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is when you see this. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know to keep sharing these stories. Life before felt warm, like a comfortable, well-worn sweater. Not exciting, perhaps, but safe. Predictable. My marriage to David was a quiet hum in the background of my world. We had our routines, our shared silences, the comfortable familiarity of two people who had chosen each other long ago and simply continued choosing day after day. My passion wasn't him, not in the fiery way of movies, but it was my work, my small online presence, and, I admit, my clothes. My wardrobe wasn't just fabric and threads, it was a collection of moments, of confidence boosters, of curated expression. Each piece had a memory, a feeling, a story. I wasn't a fashion influencer, not really, but I loved the art of it, the texture, the way a perfectly chosen outfit could make you stand taller, feel capable. David understood this, or seemed to. He'd tease me about my overflowing closet, but there was an undercurrent of affection, pride even, in his tone. Or so I thought. He started mentioning her around 6 months ago. Claire. New hire in his department. Young, ambitious, apparently needed mentoring. Standard office talk, I dismissed it. He'd come home, vent about work, sometimes her name would surface. Claire struggled with a report. I showed Claire how to use the new software innocent enough. The first flicker of unease wasn't about Claire, not consciously. It was about the missing scarf. A silk one. Distinctive. I wore it to a gallery opening, hung it carefully in the closet, and then it wasn't there. I searched, retraced my steps, asked David if he'd seen it. He hadn't. Just misplaced, I told myself. The house was big enough. Things got shifted. Then it was a belt. A specific leather belt with a unique buckle I'd found in a vintage shop. Vanished. Followed by a lightweight cashmere cardigan. One of my favorites. I started to feel a prickle of something cold beneath my skin. It wasn't just losing things. It felt deliberate. Or maybe I was going crazy. David grew distant. Not argumentative, not overtly different, but the comfortable hum of our life together seemed to lower in volume. His phone was always face down. He worked late more often. The classic signs, I recognize them now with brutal clarity, but then I pushed them away. Tried to rationalize. Stress at work, maybe? My own anxieties making me paranoid. The first undeniable proof was small, almost microscopic. A faint, unfamiliar floral scent on the collar of a jacket I hadn't worn in weeks, one I knew I'd hung up clean. My perfume was citrus and light. This was heavy, sweet, cloying. I held the jacket, breathing it in, a wave of nausea washing over me. It was like finding a spider in my bed. An intrusion. A violation. I confronted David, jacket in hand, the sweet scent a silent accuser in the air between us. He stammered. Fumbled for words. His eyes darted everywhere but mine. The truth, when it finally creaked out, wasn't a confession of an affair, not yet. It was something almost more bizarre, more insulting. Claire, she needed something for a meeting. She admired your style. I let her borrow a few things. Borrow? He let her borrow my clothes? Without asking? Without telling me? The sheer casualness of it was a fresh layer of betrayal. As if my wardrobe was a communal pool and he, the gatekeeper, could just hand out my carefully chosen pieces to a stranger. My voice was ice. Cold, sharp shards of it. You let her wear my clothes? My clothes? The clothes I bought, I chose, I wear. He visibly flinched. It was just a few items. She was in a bind. A bind. My voice rose despite my attempt at control. So you went into my closet, took my things, and gave them to her? He shuffled his feet. I figured you wouldn't mind. You have so many. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of that statement. You have so many. As if quantity negated personal ownership, emotional attachment, or basic respect. It wasn't about the monetary value of the clothes. It was about the boundary he had not just crossed, but obliterated. This was just the beginning of the borrowing. It became a silent, insidious war. I started noticing more things. A subtle stretch in a sweater sleeve, a faint smudge of makeup on a collar, the lingering trace of that heavy, sweet perfume. I started keeping track, not in a notebook, but in my head. A mental inventory of what was where. It consumed me. My joy in my clothes curdled into anxiety. Getting dressed became a chore, a reminder that my private space, my personal belongings, were not safe, not sacred. They were being shared, used, perhaps even mocked behind my back. I confronted David again. This time, less shock, more bitter resignation turning into anger. He became defensive. Accusatory. You're being paranoid. It was just once. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? He twisted the narrative, painting me as the unreasonable wife, possessive and jealous. The gaslighting was subtle at first, a slow erosion of my certainty. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just a sweater. But the feeling in my gut, that cold knot of dread, told me otherwise. The borrowing escalated. It wasn't just a scarf or a belt anymore. It was dresses, blouses, even shoes. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home, watching someone else inhabit pieces of my identity. I saw Claire once at a company event I attended with David. She was polished, confident, unremarkable in a way that made the violation feel even more surreal. I searched her outfit for familiar pieces, a morbid game I played with myself. I saw nothing identifiable, but her presence, knowing what I knew, was a physical discomfort. I smiled, made polite small talk, all while screaming internally. My sleep was fractured. My focus at work wavered. My friends noticed I was off, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. How do you tell someone your husband is letting his young colleague wear your clothes? It sounded absurd, petty, maybe even a sign of my own insecurity. But it wasn't about insecurity. It was about respect, trust. The foundation of everything crumbling, piece by piece. I tried setting clear boundaries. I moved my most precious pieces into a locked wardrobe. He reacted with irritation. You don't trust me? The irony was a bitter pill. I started hiding things, not just locking them away, but tucking them into boxes under the bed, anywhere they wouldn't be easily found. It felt degrading, like I was a child protecting my toys from a bully. But I felt powerless. My direct confrontations led nowhere, only to gaslighting and his increasing withdrawal. He was building a wall between us, brick by painstaking brick, mortared with lies and disrespect. I was trapped on the other side, watching my life dissolve. The situation spiraled. The missing items were bolder now. A cocktail dress, a designer blazer, pieces I couldn't possibly be misplacing. The scent of that heavy perfume was on his clothes now, a faint trace that hit me when I did the laundry. The affair wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was a certainty etched in the borrowed fabric of my life. They weren't just sleeping together. They were playing house with my identity. Claire was literally stepping into my shoes. I felt a profound sense of helplessness. What could I do? Yell? Plead? The emotional approach had failed. He had shut down, replaced empathy with defensiveness and lies. I was married to a stranger who was systematically erasing me, piece by piece, and replacing me with someone else, using my own things. The humiliation was a constant, low-grade fever. Every unfamiliar scent, every missing item, was a fresh stab. It felt like everything I had built, was being dismantled and handed over to someone else. I was losing myself in the wreckage of his betrayal. All seemed truly lost. I saw no way out that didn't involve complete devastation. My life felt like it was shrinking, constricting, leaving me nowhere to breathe. Then came the tagging. The first tag was like a physical blow. At my name on a photo of her in my dress. The same dress I wore to our anniversary dinner 2 years ago. It wasn't just wearing the dress, it was wearing it publicly, online, and deliberately associating it with me.
Why?
Why would she do that? Was it a mistake? A bizarre oversight? Or was it something colder, more calculated? A deliberate taunt? A way to mark her territory? A twisted form of dominance? My initial reaction was pure, white-hot rage, quickly followed by a chilling fear. What did this mean? Who else saw this? Was she broadcasting their affair to the world? Was this her way of forcing a confrontation? I wanted to call David, scream down the phone, expose her, expose them. But something stopped me. A cold, quiet voice in the back of my mind. I scrolled through her profile. The photo was recent. A casual event. There were others. And then I saw another tag. At my name, on her, in my silk blouse. Then another. At my name, on her, in my favorite tailored trousers. It wasn't one photo. It was several. Posted over days, sometimes weeks. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a mistake. This was intentional.
Why?
The question gnawed at me. Why tag me? It made no sense. Unless it wasn't about shaming me. Unless it was about something else entirely. I went quiet. Silent observer. I stopped confronting David about the clothes. I acted normal. Or as normal as someone can act when their life is disintegrating and being worn by someone else online. I smiled. I made dinner. I listened to his increasingly strained stories about work, about Claire. All the while, my mind was a steel trap, working, analyzing, planning. I started taking screenshots. Every photo. Every tag. I created a hidden folder on my computer. Date, time, item of clothing, the event or location in the photo if discernible. My emotional turmoil didn't vanish, but it was compartmentalized. It was fuel. Cold, hard fuel for the fire that was building inside me. The more photos I saved, the clearer the pattern became. She wasn't just wearing my clothes, she was wearing them to specific events. Company functions. Social gatherings. Places where they would be seen together. And she was tagging me. I started digging deeper. Not into their affair, that was a given. Into them. Who was Claire, really? What was her background? What were their careers about specifically? David worked in finance, something about investments and new ventures. Claire was his protégé. I started looking at their public profiles beyond the tagged photos.
Linkage.
Company website. News articles mentioning David or his firm. That's when the puzzle pieces started clicking into place, forming a picture far uglier than simple infidelity. David and Claire were working on a major new project at his firm.
High stakes.
Required significant networking, public appearances, projecting an image of success and stability. My clothes, my style, my curated wardrobe, it was perfect for this. And my social media presence, though small, was connected to certain circles, certain potential investors, or contacts relevant to their project. They weren't just having an affair. They were using me. Using my home, my belongings, potentially even leveraging my subtle online presence and network through those tags. Why would she tag me? It finally dawned on me, a chilling realization that clarified everything. She wasn't tagging me to taunt me about the affair. She was tagging me because she was wearing my clothes associated with me and my life, potentially to give herself a veneer of belonging, sophistication, or credibility she lacked on her own. And perhaps, in a twisted way, to make their associations seem more natural, less like an affair and more like borrowing from a friend? Or maybe even worse, she thought it was funny. A private joke shared between them, with me as the unwitting punchline. The anger shifted. It wasn't just about betrayal now.
It was about exploitation.
Manipulation. They weren't just hurting me emotionally. They were using my identity, my possessions as tools in their professional ambition, perhaps even financially benefiting from it. The clothes weren't just clothes anymore. They were evidence. The tags weren't just tags. They were timestamps and locations. And I had been handed the entire case on a silver platter, delivered by their own arrogant hand. The midpoint shift was complete. I stopped being the heartbroken wife, trying to understand. I became the cold, meticulous strategist. The pain was still there, a dull ache beneath the surface, but it was no longer debilitating. It was transmuted into focus. Every interaction with David was a performance. Every screenshot was a victory, small but significant. I wasn't going to confront them again. I wasn't going to beg or plead. I was going to wait, build my case. And when the time was right, I was going to use their own weapon against them in a way they could never anticipate. They thought they were so clever, operating in the shadows of my life. But they had stepped into the light, tagged themselves in it, and given me everything I needed to bring their world crashing down. The deepening crisis was silent, internal. My life felt like a stage play where only I knew the real script. I watched David and Claire from a distance, observing their movements, their public appearances, correlating them with the tagged photos. I saw the risks they were taking, the precarious balance they were maintaining. Their ambition was enormous, and it made them careless. They were so focused on the prize, they forgot the ground beneath them was shifting. And I was the one shifting it, silently, meticulously, screenshot by screenshot. I consulted a lawyer. Not about divorce, not yet. About intellectual property, privacy, misuse of image, financial misconduct related to business ventures. I showed him the evidence. The tagged photos, the dates, the items, cross-referenced with David's public calendar and Claire's online activity. His initial skepticism turned into grim interest. The pattern was clear. My clothes, tagged with my name, appearing at crucial networking events, often shortly after going missing from my closet. It painted a picture not just of an affair, but of deliberate deception and potentially leveraging my identity or assets without my consent for professional gain. My lawyer called it fascinatingly reckless. I called it infuriatingly arrogant. I learned about their project, a multi-million-dollar fund they were trying to secure. The final presentation, the moment of truth, was scheduled for a major industry conference in 2 months. This was their deadline. This was also mine. I moved from documentation to planning the execution. My strength wasn't in finance or corporate deals. It was in curation, in presentation, in telling a story visually and emotionally. Just like I curated my wardrobe, I would curate their downfall. I wouldn't just expose them. I would expose the sheer, grubby disrespect of it all. My turning point was quiet, late one night, sitting alone in the living room, the house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I looked at the screenshots again. Her smiling face, wearing my red power blazer. The one I bought after landing my first big contract. It wasn't just fabric. It was a symbol of my own hard work, my own success. And she was using it, claiming its power as her own, facilitated by the man who was supposed to be my partner. In that moment, the last vestige of hope for my marriage died. It wasn't a sudden, violent death, but a slow, cold fading. And in its place rose something sharper, harder. Determination. They had built their shaky tower on stolen ground, using stolen bricks. It was time to watch it fall. My final decision wasn't about revenge, not purely. It was about justice. About reclaiming what was mine, not just the clothes, but my dignity, my story, my future. The days leading up to the conference were a blur of quiet preparation. David was stressed, preoccupied with his presentation. Claire was likely stressed too, putting the final touches on their pitch. They were oblivious to the storm gathering just beneath the horizon, a storm they had unwittingly conjured. I continued my performance as the unsuspecting wife. I even helped David pack his suitcase, making sure my clothes, the ones I knew Claire had been wearing, the ones I had documented being tagged online, were conspicuously absent. I subtly mentioned needing several pieces for an upcoming event of my own, securing them firmly in my locked wardrobe or, in some cases, moving them to a safe deposit box. He barely noticed. The conference began. I wasn't there. I was home, connected to the internet, waiting. My plan was simple, public, and directly tied to their arrogance. I had created a presentation of my own. Not slides and charts, but a visual narrative. A website. Clean, elegant, professional. On the homepage, a single line. Stories clothes could tell. Inside, the story unfolded. Item by item. A photo of me wearing a dress. Then, a photo of Claire wearing the same dress, with a screenshot of her tag, the date and the location, cross-referenced with the conference schedule. My red blazer. My silk blouse. My vintage belt. Each piece a chapter. Each tag a timestamp of their deception. I didn't add commentary about the affair. I didn't use emotional language. I presented facts.
Dates.
Items. Locations. Publicly available tags linking Claire, wearing my clothes, tagged with my name, to events crucial to their professional venture. I released it quietly. First, I sent an anonymous tip with the website link to a few key financial bloggers and industry journalists who covered David's firm and the conference. Then, I shared the link on a few relevant online forums and social media groups where attendees of the conference might see it, phrasing it innocently, like a curious personal project about the secret life of clothes. The effect was instantaneous. The internet does what it does best: amplify. The link spread like wildfire through the industry circles present at the conference. Attendees, bored during breaks, scrolling their phones, saw it. Colleagues of David and Claire saw it. Potential investors saw it. My phone remained silent. That was part of the plan. I didn't want a direct confrontation on my terms. I wanted them to discover it, to feel the ground vanish beneath their feet while they were standing on stage, or moments before. I imagined the scene. Someone, maybe a junior analyst, maybe a major investor David was schmoozing, checks their phone.
Sees the link. Clicks.
Scrolls. Sees Claire, his protégé, wearing my clothes, tagged with my name, at events they were just at. The dates align with David's absences from home. The locations match the conference itinerary. The sheer, undeniable visual evidence. The first call came not to me, but indirectly. A mutual friend, their voice tight with shock, called me. Have you seen this website?
It's
everywhere. People are talking. I acted surprised, concerned. My performance was flawless. Then David called. His voice was not angry. It was pure, unadulterated panic. What have you done? He yelled. Not what is this, or why would you do this, but what have you done?
He knew immediately it was me.
He knew it was connected to the clothes, to the tagging, to their shared secret. His carefully constructed world was collapsing, and he knew I was holding the detonator. What have I done, David? My voice was calm, deadly quiet. I haven't done anything. I just told a story. A story your clothes were already telling. A story Claire was kind enough to illustrate for me, complete with dates and locations, tagged under my own name. He was sputtering, accusing, threatening. You've ruined everything. Our project. My career. You ruined everything, David. I stated, the calm center of the storm. When you decided my things, my identity, my life, were commodities you could lend out to sleep with. When you thought you could use me and my clothes to build your empire. Claire just helped me document it. Her tags were very helpful, actually. Made my research much easier. That's when he screamed. A guttural, raw sound of pure terror and disbelief. He screamed my name, screamed obscenities, screamed about how he would destroy me. He screamed because he finally understood the magnitude of his error. He didn't just betray me. He armed me. He gave Claire permission to use my identity online, and she, in her arrogance or ignorance, handed me the public proof I needed to dismantle their entire operation. He wasn't screaming because the affair was exposed. He was screaming because his professional and financial ruin was exposed, directly linked to his personal misconduct, documented by the very evidence he had facilitated. His scream wasn't about love or betrayal. It was about money and power slipping through his fingers because he let a woman wear my dress and tag me in it. The climax wasn't a shouting match or a dramatic confrontation in person. It was this phone call, his scream echoing the death of his aspirations, while I stood calmly in the wreckage they had created, holding the pieces of evidence they had so generously provided. Claire, I learned later, was blindsided too. She hadn't understood the implications of her casual tagging, of the public footprint she was leaving. She thought she was being clever, or maybe just didn't think at all. Now, her professional reputation was in tatters, linked forever to the woman who wore his wife's clothes. The fallout was swift and decisive. The negative attention on David's firm was immediate. Investors pulled out. The project was dead on arrival. An internal investigation was launched, prompted by the sheer public nature of the scandal. David was not just fired, he was disgraced within the industry. Claire's career was equally damaged. The financial loss was immense for them. For me, it was freedom. The house felt different immediately. Lighter. The air was cleaner, free of the stale scent of betrayal and that cloying perfume. I walked through my closet. My clothes were there. Not just objects anymore, but survivors. Each piece had a story now, not just of where I wore it, but of what it had witnessed, what it had endured, and how it had, in a strange, inanimate way, fought back for me. There was no triumphant parade, just a profound, weary sense of quiet. The legal process followed, untangling the financial mess they had created, verifying the misuse of resources and potential leveraging of my identity. The divorce was swift, uncontested on my part. David was too busy trying to salvage his reputation and facing investigations. I didn't get revenge in the way of wanting him miserable forever. I got justice. I reclaimed my space, my things, my narrative. The pain of the betrayal lingers, a scar beneath the surface. Trust is a fragile thing, easily shattered. But the feeling of powerlessness is gone. They underestimated me. They saw me as a passive backdrop to their lives, someone whose belongings were fair game, someone who wouldn't fight back, or couldn't fight back effectively. They were wrong. They built their deception on my foundation, and when they exposed their blueprint through simple social media tags, I used it to bring the whole structure down. My clothes are just clothes again now, but they carry a new story. A story of disrespect, of violation, but also a story of quiet strength, of observation, of turning the tables when all seemed lost. I look at them differently, with a strange mix of affection and a chilling reminder of how quickly a life can be invaded, how subtly trust can be poisoned. But also, how even in the darkest moments, the tools for your own vindication might be right there, in plain sight, waiting for you to notice, to document, to use. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.